Fantastic. Welcome everyone to this Healthy City class. This is class number 3. So previously we talked about how to have some prevention when it comes to your health. Last week we talked about nourishing yourself. And then today we're going to be talking about nourishing a family. And how to create and maintain healthy relationships with food that can pass on to your children or who may be living with you or with anyone that you might be a caregiver of. So the objectives for today's class is we're going to be talking about feeding yourself. We're then going to be talking about the division of responsibility, moving on to feeding your family, and then tools for success when it comes to feeding a family and how to help make it easier and how to help you to be successful. So a little about us is we are the Portneuf Diabetes and Nutrition Education Clinic, and there's our phone number. Our team consists of certified diabetes educators and registered nurses and registered dietitians. I am a registered dietitian. My name's Lizzie, if I haven't said that. I've been a dietitian for about 2.5 years, and I have a little baby boy, and so it's been who's a year old, and it's been really enjoyable to see how I've been able to put some of these principles into practice and how it is so critical even at a young age to start emphasizing and having these good healthy patterns with food and hopefully being able to share that with him and things that we can talk about and share with today. So some reminders is to please silence your cell phones, and we're just online today. So any online folks, go ahead and participate. Enter any questions that you have in the chat box, and let's continue to be respectful to others. So I love this quote. Ellen Satter is a registered dietitian who is also a feeding therapist, and she specializes in the feeding of families. And I love this quote from her. It says, "To feed yourself and your family well, you have to make eating a priority. To be willing to make eating a priority, you have to take the guilt and put the joy back in." And so in order to nourish a family, you really have to think about, okay, how am I feeding myself? Because how you feeding yourself is going to spread different practices and behaviors to your family and those that you surround yourself with. And so, what are some of the challenge that you have when it comes to feeding yourself? So, not enough time is a very common one. So, not enough time. I feel like lack of planning can be another hard one. It's 5 o'clock, you haven't had dinner planned. And so you're like, oh, screw it, I'm just going to get some fast food. I think like just the busyness of life too. Or just taking that time to sit down and eat or wanting to not make eating a priority too. I think are some things that as a dietitian, people have come and talked to me about as some challenges that they experience. And so feeding yourself can be a real challenge. Children often mimic that relationship that you have with food and body. And this is one thing I'm trying to be really aware of. When my little boy is sitting down and eating a meal, I'm like, okay, what am I showing him? And what I'm showing him is that I'm eating while I'm cleaning. And so, like, I'm not setting that time aside and making that food a priority for myself to sit down and enjoy that time with eating, enjoying the food. And so just keeping that in mind that children are going to mimic that. And so, to how to be a successful eater for yourself, there's kind of 4 principles that we're going to dive into today when it comes to feeding yourself. So, the first one is to have positive attitudes about eating. The second one is learn to like and enjoy the food that is available to you. Practice eating intuitively and mindfully, and then making meals a priority for yourself. So, positive attitude about eating. Let's talk about this one. So, the first one is to give yourself permission to, first of all, enjoy the foods that you're eating foods that you love, taking time to eat, and making sure that you're eating enough. So, giving yourself permission. It's okay to enjoy ice cream and it's okay to take that time aside to eat because that's actually a better pattern of eating. And allowing yourself to do that is one of the first positive attitudes to set about eating. When you have a negative thought, explore where it comes from. Is this negative thought that I read about online? A big topic of conversations is seed oils. And so where did this come from? Why am I having this feeling? What is this coming from? And was this a common phrase in my home growing up? So it's helping you to explore What was the root of this? And is this a root or thought that I want to spread or give to my child or anyone that may be around me? And so, again, always going back to what message do you want to send to your children or to those around you about what your attitude is towards food? So, the next principle is learn to like and enjoy the foods that are available to you. So, model the eating patterns that you want your children to have. Last time we talked about the plate method. So, trying to make sure that you mimic your meals after this. And so try to incorporate more fruits and vegetables into your diet. Do a variety of different grains. Do a whole bunch of different plants. Having that will pass on to your children. I was thinking about like what was the example that my parents gave me when I was younger. And for breakfast, we always had a protein, a fruit, and a vegetable, or a protein, a fruit, and a grain. And that really mimics the plate method. And that is something I carried on with me when I was at college, and so it was really easy for me to pick out breakfast in particular because I knew the model that I was supposed to have, in my breakfast, and so your example will pass on to your children. Okay, so find creative ways to incorporate more nutrient dense foods into your diet. So we do know that like there could be some foods that you really enjoy, but how can we add more to it? I love ice cream bars and I love ice cream. And so how can I incorporate more nutrient dense foods into there? Throwing some almonds into my ice cream sundaes or having some fruit as an option too. That just makes it so I can still enjoy those foods, but incorporating more nutrient dense foods in there. And then have fun with food. Try new recipes, do a cooking class. Blue Apron's a great option to give you some different food ideas. I love to take my time at a grocery store, find new foods to try, watch a cooking show, just like really try to bring joy back into food and cooking. Practice intuitive and mindful eating is the next one. So, intuitive eating is eat what sounds good to you and stop eating when you are full. So, that's often what we hear with this simple definition of intuitive eating, but it's an opportunity for you to trust your body to tell you what you need. But this will take practice. Your body does not only want to eat ice cream, but maybe some restrictions and years of telling yourself no to things that may make you want to have that food all the time. But what our bodies crave and what they desire are variety and having eating with the plate method. And so when we start to really hone in on what is it my body wants, that's a great way to start with practicing this intuitive eating and giving yourself that flexibility. Mindful eating is where we limit distractions and we take time to eat. We focus on chewing our food. We recognize the different textures, flavors, smells of your food, etc. It's really taking that pause and stepping away from those distractions and knowing that, like, right now, eating is a priority, and I'm going to try to have as least distractions as I can while I eat. This is also very beneficial for digestion as well. So, and then the hunger and fullness scale is a simple tool that you can use as you are a beginner with this intuitive and mindful eating. And we're going to show that in the next one. And then the other thing that is practicing intuitive and mindful eating can help minimize some of those food noises. And what food noise is just this constant chatter about food in your head. So here's the hunger fullness scale. So the hunger fullness scale is essentially a scale from 1 to 10, where 10 being you're extremely stuffed, you're super nauseous, and 1 is you're starving, you have no energy, you're super weak. And so we want to avoid being on these two different extremes. I like to think of this extremeness as Thanksgiving. Often when Thanksgiving, people often skip breakfast and lunch. They go into Thanksgiving, they are super hungry, they're starving, so they end up piling their plate full of food. They eat super quickly, they don't eat super mindfully, and then they end up feeling extremely stuffed. They feel really nauseous. They need to take a nap afterwards, and then they keep eating more pie, which doesn't help. And so I like to think of these as the two very big extremes. And so doing our best to avoid eating like this, because again, when we get to this one, we are so hungry. Our body and our biology is telling us, please feed us. And so we just eat a whole bunch. We don't feel super good afterwards, which is not a good pattern to have. And so avoid skipping meals can really help with this. And trying to be that intuitive and mindfulness of our eating. And so you really want to try and stick between this 3 to 7 range. of eating. And this also helps us with mindful eating because it helps us to slow down and check with our bodies while we're eating. How am I feeling? Am I at a 5? Am I at a 7? Like, how am I feeling? I was able to practice this yesterday. I had to get some labs drawn for insurance, and I had to go fasting, and it wasn't till noon when I ate, and I hate fasting. But I knew I was like, okay, I know that this food is going to help me feel better, but I need to make sure that I am mindful that I take a step back, that I eat slowly so that I don't get overly stuffed and nauseous afterwards. And it was a great reminder and opportunity for me to practice and think of this as I'm eating after a period of fasting. So I want you to we're going to do this activity. I want you to not think about purple elephants. Now, naturally, we're all going to be thinking about purple elephants. So when we tell ourselves to not do something, we're going to start thinking about it. And that's related to food noise. With food noise, that's oftentimes we see this more when people have a history of years of dieting or giving themselves lots of restriction around food because they've been telling themselves for years to, oh, I can't have that because of X, or this doesn't align with my diet, or this. And so they create this um like want or desire to that food because it's something that we've told ourselves not to do. And so some simple strategies to help with quieting that food noise is to one, take the time to improve. Or sorry. So obsessing, so going back to this is hyper conscious focus of eating is aware of how foods make you feel. Hunger, fullness, mindful eating, eating more nutritionally dense food. So really trying to focus on I'm going to become more conscious of what I am eating. So, again, that's going back to that mindful eating. And how is it when I'm eating? That is helping you to reduce that food noise because you took that time to separate yourself from the distractions of the world to focus on eating, to fulfill a biological need that you have. Quieting food noise will not happen overnight, and it takes time to improve. I remember when I was first learning how to drive a car, it was so stressful to me to learn how to drive a car. But now it's so intuitive to me. This is probably not the smartest thing to say, but I have a longer commute and all of a sudden I'm like, oh wow, I'm home. It just became so much more natural to me. So it's scary at first to learn how to trust our bodies with this intuitive eating, but with practice and time, you will learn how to become more intuitive and more mindful with your eating. Give yourself permission to eat these foods to make peace with these foods. If you, for years, you've been saying, I can't have Tillamook ice cream because of the fat content, give yourself that practice to, it's okay to have these foods. And I know that I can eat them in moderation and take these foods off of this pedestal that you may have put them on. So it might be a negative pedestal that you put them on of, oh, these are really bad foods, so I shouldn't eat them. By removing that pedestal, you remove that desire to want them all the time. And listen to what your body needs. So if we have to go to the bathroom, do we ignore having to go to the bathroom? No, we always go to the bathroom. And so when we're hungry, that food noises might just be your body telling you that you are hungry. And so when you are hungry, please eat. Please practice that eating. Show your body that you are willing to respond to the signals that it is telling you. And that will reduce that your body, when you give the body I know that this is what you're going to give me, so I don't need to remind you of it all the time now. And work on escape living in extremes with food. Remove the labels of good and bad foods, and all foods can fit into a healthy diet. And this is really what we talked about last week of you can fit all the things that you want in a diet, but also try and just incorporate more of those nutrient-dense foods as well. So one thing that I often hear is people say, oh, I'm going to be good and just have a protein shake for breakfast. Well, we eat 3 meals a day and we're trying to spread out our calories throughout the day. And so if someone says, oh, I'm just going to have a protein shake, well, if we look at the nutrition and if we're supposed to eat 1,800 calories a day, and so if we divide that up by 3, that's 600 calories per meal. This protein shake is nowhere near enough calories when it comes to trying to have a filling, nutritious breakfast. Yes, it has protein in it, but calories are also very, very important when it comes to that energy levels. And so when we don't have enough of those calories, when we just have a protein shake for breakfast, we're not getting our body's needs. And then within an hour or two, we're probably having this food noise and we're delaying it because we're like, well, I was good this morning. I want to keep being good. But then we delay it so long that we get to this 1 to 2 on the hunger scale. And then we just end up binging, or I'm so hungry, I'm going to go get fast food for lunch, because we did that. And then we feel bad. We feel that guilt. And so really assessing, okay, how am I spreading my nutrition out in the day? And am I getting a sufficient enough breakfast to start out? Now, not to demonize protein shakes. I think protein shakes are a really great thing to have, but more so these help to supplement to fill the needs. I love oatmeal. Oatmeal doesn't have a lot of protein in it. So I try to have a protein shake with my oatmeal because I love oatmeal, but now I can just add that protein shake to it to help with creating that balanced plate. So making a meals a priority to yourself. So this is now the next section. So food is pretty gosh darn important. We need food to survive. If we didn't eat, we would die. And so we have to keep eating. And so eating food and eating is just a huge part of our life. And so let's make it great. We know we can't live without it. So let's just make it the best that we can. Eat consistently and regularly throughout the day has so many different benefits on our digestion, trying to make sure we have that good nutrition. And so, really being consistent and making that a priority. Take that time to eat. Sit down with your family, sit down with your kids. I know it can be really hard when you have young kids at home, but when they see you making that a priority, it'll be so beneficial for them and for you as well. Becoming a competent eater. So, competent eating is made up of both permission and discipline as well. If you know I love ice cream and I'm starving, so I'm going to eat some ice cream before my dinner time, I know you're probably going to spoil your dinner. That's something we heard growing up, and trying to know yourself. And I can still enjoy my ice cream, but first I'm going to enjoy a healthy, more nutrient dense meal. And then afterwards, I'm going to have that ice cream. So you're giving yourself that permission, but then the discipline at the same time. Another discipline could be, I know when I have a large milkshake, I'm going to feel sick afterwards. Yes, I do really want a milkshake. So I'm not going to stick with the large. I'm going to stick with the small instead, because that doesn't make me feel sick and I can still enjoy it. So again, having that confidence and knowing I can enjoy these foods, but I know my limits. The permission to choose foods you enjoy and eat it to the amounts that keep you satisfied. And then the discipline to provide yourself regular and reliable meals and snacks, to pay attention when you eat them. So, again, that is the permission to enjoy foods, but then having that discipline of, not only I know that I'm not going to overeat, but I'm going to eat regularly because I know that's going to prevent me from getting to a 1 on the hunger scale. I know that this about me, so I'm going to eat this. One example of this is, I noticed when I was coming home from work, I was so hungry for dinner time that I would eat 4 to 5 pieces of bread while I was making dinner, because I was so hungry. And then I would feel, I like kind of guilty because I prepared this meal, but also that bread wasn't satisfying to me. So then I would eat dinner and then I would get overly full. So now I added the discipline of having a snack before I head home from work, because I know that that snack is going to help. I'm going to, one, make a smarter choice when it comes to my snack, and two, it's going to hold me over to dinner time so I can make smarter, more nutritionally dense choices at dinner time. So we've talked about how we can help you become a competent eater and strategies to help you, but now let's talk about how to help children become competent eaters. And so, what are some of the challenges that you have with feeding your own children? Some things we often hear are like picky eating is a very common thing. Children don't want to have foods. I know it's often, I love watching my nieces and nephews, but they always get up and move around during meal times. Picky eating, what Katie said. So yeah, it can just be really challenging when it comes to feeding children. And so Ellen Satter, going back to her, she talks about the division of responsibility. Sorry, there's one more chat. And then struggle with getting vegetables in. Yeah, trying to just help with that exposure for kids can be really challenging in new foods. So going back to Ellen Satter, so she has this division of responsibility where it's the responsibility of both the parents and the child's responsibility when it comes to eating. So What the parent's responsibility is, they're in charge for the what, the when, and the where of feeding. Children are responsible for how much and whether they eat the food or not. And you are the leader of the household, so you are in charge of organizing, planning what type of environment is being fed, but the children are given the autonomy to that food. I can look at you and you can't look at me and tell me when I'm full, and I can't look at you and tell you when you're full. And so trying to give that respect and autonomy to your children as well. So the parent's responsibility, diving into this a little bit more. So what? So what you are feeding your children and other family members. So what is on the menu? What is it that you're offering them? This always frustrates me when parents come in and they say, oh yeah, children have a free for all for their meals. And I'm like, okay, well, if I was a child, I would just eat cereal or frosting. And so you as the parent taking on that responsibility for what to feed your children is very important. And also trying to work towards feeding them the plate method and giving them that diversity of foods. So setting regular, consistent, and predictable times for both meals and snacks. We're as humans, we like to eat every 3 to 5 hours. And so when we do the math, most children go to school around like 8 o'clock. So they'll eat breakfast around 7:30. They have lunch around 11. And then if they don't have dinner until 6, yeah, they're going to come home and be hungry and be a little bit more ravenous. And so making sure your children know you have a snack time when you get home from school or even before bedtime. It's totally appropriate and okay for children to have those bedtime snacks. And it also leaves children not wondering when is the next time I will be given food. And when they come home from school, they might binge on a whole bunch of like crackers or chips or cookies because those are easy to grab things. And if they don't know when dinner is or they haven't had consistent dinner times, they're left wondering this is the time I'm going to get food, so I'm going to eat it. And so being that consistent of when setting that regular predictable times is really helpful when it comes to feeding children. So working on making sure you have a calm eating environment as best as you can. I know it can be really chaotic, but doing the best to avoid distractions as well. So talk to your children about their day. Eating at the table, you can play music in the background if your children don't like to sit, or if you've gone from watching TV, transition to playing music, work on clearing the dining room table so there's a place to sit. Ask them how their day is going, ask them what they're enjoying in school. So just trying to get more involved in your children and taking this time to talk to them. And then now going on to the children's responsibility. So with the children, it's how much. So this is their opportunity at a young age to practice that intuitive eating and to practice to eating until they're full. If they overeat, it's just an opportunity for you to teach them to know what it feels like when they're over full. And so again, it's just you are practicing and teaching their child how to eat intuitively when you allow them to have that autonomy. Now, if they take 2 bites of dinner and they say, I don't want any more, you can say, okay, this is for this. We will say this and you can have it later. And then if it's bedtime and they're hungry, you can say, great, we still have dinner for you. So you're still providing, you are still in charge of the what of what they are eating. You're still providing that. But then you're able to reoffer it to them again. And that kind of goes into this next point of whether. So yes, that means that they do not have to eat those certain foods of vegetables. And it takes 20 plus times of exposure to a child before they're actually interested in that food. And it doesn't have to be you have to eat this food. You can simply start with why don't we first start by touching with the food? Why don't we start by smelling or licking the food before they actually put it into their mouths? So then it's just this small progression. I think about doing new things and it's really scary. And for children, that's something that's new to them. And so having that understanding of this is scary, so why don't we just dip one toe in the water? Why don't we just start by touching it first, to start with showing that interest? And then as a parent, do your best to try to limit food talk and giving that food pressure. So instead of saying, you don't like broccoli or dad doesn't like broccoli, trying to say like broccoli is green. What are some other green foods that you like? Instead of saying, thank you for trying that food, trying to shift it to that's really brave that you tried that new food, or trying new things can be scary. So trying to remove that food from the conversation, but more so echoing the child and the behavior that they did instead of relating it to the food. Um, So again, I love this quote from Ellen Satter. It says, "When the joy goes out of eating, nutrition suffers." And so again, really tying back to food is meant to be joyful and we're supposed to enjoy eating. So trying to put that joy back into food and eating. So now we're going to talk about some tools for success. We're going to go over meal planning tips, some resources, and then some smart shopping tips. So, the benefits of meal planning. Meal planning is such a headache sometimes, but when we think about the why of meal planning, it helps to ease the burden and frustration when it comes to meal planning. So, without a plan, your goals are most likely going to fail. If you say, I'm going to eat out only twice a week when normally I eat out 5 times a week, but I'm not going to plan the meals around that, that's not a successful long term plan for yourself, and your goal is not going to be successful. It helps you to get organized in the house. It allows for variety of meals, so you get different proteins, fruits, vegetables when you have a meal plan. It helps you to create that balanced plate because you know, okay, we have this chicken. Now, what can we purchase to add on to that to help it to create a balanced plate? It helps to save money, and there's less food waste when we meal plan. It is predictable and provides a sense of security not only for yourself but also for your children when they know what the meal is and what to plan for. And also get your children involved with meal planning and let them have some autonomy to know, okay, this like Saturday is kids day. What are the foods we want to make? What foods can we incorporate or practice together in the kitchen making? So where to start? I like to look in my fridge to see what fruits and vegetables that need to be eaten, because those tend to spoil the fastest. So what are ones that we need to use up? Look at the grocery deals for the week. That's my favorite thing. Fred Meyer's comes out on Tuesday night, and I always look. I'm like, okay, great. Wednesday's my shopping day. What am I going to purchase this next week? Refer to the plate method. So fill in those missing components. If you know I'm going to get a rotisserie chicken, I have some rice I'm going to use. So what's the missing part? There's some vegetables I need to throw in there. I'm going to go get some frozen broccoli so I can just chuck in the microwave because that's a busy day for me. With over time, I would work on creating a list of your household favorite meals. So you're not just storing something in your head of, now I got to try and pull this meal, or I'm trying to think of Mexican meals, or I'm trying to think of this meal. Just so then you have a list. So then it's using up less brain power when it comes to meal planning. Enlist the help of everyone. Again, ask your children what they want to eat or have a night that's a kid's choice. Continue to find new recipes that you want to try, continuing to find joy in food, doing cooking shows, looking at Pinterest. It's my favorite way to get recipes. Buy a new cookbook, doing things like that. So then it keeps that joy into cooking. Use or meal plan on the same time and the same day every week. So you can use habit stacking. So if there's something that you do in the kitchen once a week, think, okay, I know I do this, so I'm going to pair this thing I always do with meal planning. I like to clean out my fridge on Sundays. And so I'm like, okay, when I clean out my fridge, I can clean out my fridge. I can look at fruits and vegetables need to be eaten. And then I'm going to meal prep at the same time because I've already done half the work. I can just pair something I'm already doing with my meal prep. So some other meal planning tips, use similar ingredients for multiple meals, especially when the ingredients are on sale or if the produce is in season. So like we're in a squash season right now. So purchasing zucchini is on sale, but then trying to incorporate zucchini in different soups. You can throw it into pasta sauce. You can add it as a side dish. My favorite thing to do is just cut a zucchini in half, sprinkle cheese on top and bake it. It is so good. And so just trying to use, and then you only have to purchase that food one time. Or you could prep it. So if you have potatoes, if you have 2 or 3 recipes that use potatoes and you need to chop up the potatoes, just spend a little bit of time and chop and prep that potato. So then you only have to do that once and you only have to do the dishes one time. Consider the schedule of the day is a really good practice. So if there's soccer practice, or if you're like, I know I'm working late this day, I probably need to do a quick 20-minute meal. So simply, I'm going to chuck some chicken nuggets, frozen vegetables, or a salad packet, and there I have a balanced meal right there. Set a daily theme is another simple thing. So you can say Monday's Mexican night, Tuesday is American foods night. Wednesday's a crock pot meal. So setting that daily theme can be really helpful. And then that eliminates the decision aspect of it because you know, okay, I know that these are my Mexican foods. So I just need to pick from this list of 5 things. The other thing is to cook double portions and freeze in half. Or you could also cook extra grains and use it throughout the week. So if you cook rice, for example, you could do a stir fry, you could do burrito bowls, you could do fried rice. So you only have to cook that rice once, but then you just have to use it throughout the rest of the week. So some smart shopping tips is frozen and canned fruits and vegetables are often cheaper and last longer. Want to try and stick with more of the frozen foods, but if you do purchase canned fruits or vegetables, try and stick with the low sodium options, and then doing in juice and not doing in syrup when it comes to your fruit. Purchase shelf stable or frozen foods when on sale. So if you see that, oh, this is a deal this week, I'm going to purchase a few because I know they're shelf stable, then I don't have to purchase them all the time. But also don't just purchase on something because it's on sale if you're not going to use it. If cream of chicken soup is on sale, but you don't really have any recipes that use it, then don't buy it. Store brands are often cheaper, so sticking with like Kroger or the Equate or whatever, looking at which is the store brand, they often are pretty similar in taste, but they are cheaper. And then also looking at the unit price, you'll see that on any shelf label. They're often in the upper left corner. So just see comparing the different brands, which one is going to be the cheapest. You want to look for the lower number. Okay, use grocery store ads. Again, you can sign up for store membership programs. They often are free and they provide additional savings. My favorite place to shop is Fred Meyer's, and they have a free membership, and I get a lot of deals and savings, and I always get coupons in the mail. So it's a great, simple thing to add up, and it takes 5 minutes to sign up. Some other ones is don't shop on an empty stomach. You're often going to purchase not the best options, or you might overbuy snacks because you're hungry at that time. So have breakfast and then go grocery shopping, or have lunch and then go grocery shopping, or have a snack with you to eat before you go grocery shopping, just so you're not shopping on an empty stomach and then making not as smart, nutritionally dense, or cost-saving purchases. Avoid frequent shops to the grocery stores. Extra trips are opportunities to spend more money. I definitely fall victim of this. I'm like, oh, and then this snack looks good. And so just try to avoid, and that's where meal planning and grocery planning can really come into place and help with that avoidance of frequent grocery shops. And then check for errors in pricing when it comes to checking out. So grocery stores make mistakes. And so just make sure if something is on sale that you make note of it so you do know, okay, I know that this is the correct amount. And so just double check. So here are some resources for some cooking education classes. So Homemade is a free live cooking class, and it's online. And so you can just go on here, sign up, and they have a whole bunch of different cooking classes. The University of Idaho cooking classes with Eat Smart Idaho. This is free cooking classes here in the area. And so you can look up this website and see what options they have. And then if you want to do something in your home, Blue Apron is a meal prep service where they send you the ingredients, but then also a recipe card. So they show you how to do the recipe and you have the ingredients there, and then you can just save the recipe card. And if it's delicious, you can use it again. Here are some recipe websites that I really like. I really like the Real Food Dietitians, Skinny Taste, Fit Foodie Finds. Dr. Yum is a great website, especially if you have children, because you can go on there and they have the foods option, like favorite food options. And so if there's a food that your child's interested in, you can, like a vegetable or a fruit, you can go there, click on the specific fruit or vegetable, and then it comes up as to how to prepare it. It comes up with why this food might be higher in nutrients, or like what are some of the higher nutrients in the food. And then it always has a few recipes that you can try. So this is a fun one. Again, Pinterest is awesome. Pinterest has a lot of different options, and I love scrolling on Pinterest. YouTube can also have some really good things. Gordon Ramsay has a YouTube channel, and he posts different recipes on there. And then Kids Eat in Color is another really great website that has a whole bunch of different recipes and ideas to help with giving your children different ideas to eating different fruits and vegetables and just more colorful foods. That doesn't include Skittles. And so does anyone have any other resources or recipe websites that you utilize? Okay. So I think that's it for today, but if anyone has any questions, you're more than welcome to stick around. Next week, we are talking about movement. So yeah, anything else you want to add, Michaela?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Okay, we'll see you next week. Stick around if you have any questions, and thank you so much for your time.